She had maybe an hour left when Eli Mercer found her. Maybe less if the wind kept blowing hot like that. Her skin was cracked and burning, her breath shallow, and flies settled on her face because she no longer had the strength to swat them away. One more wrong turn of the sun, one more mile without shade, and the desert would finish her without apology. The first thing Eli heard was the wind, dry and constant, scraping across the grass like sandpaper. The second sound was the faint creak of leather as his saddle shifted, because he had already stopped riding. He had learned long ago that the land warned you before it killed you, if you knew how to listen. She lay on her side near a low cactus. Dress torn, one shoe missing, hair stuck to her cheek with sweat and dust. Her eyes were open but unfocused, like she was looking past him, already somewhere else. Eli knelt without thinking, checked her pulse with 2 fingers, then pressed his canteen to her lips just enough to wet them, not too much, not too fast, because mistakes killed faster than thirst. When her fingers closed around his wrist, the grip surprised him. It was weak, but it was deliberate. She pulled him closer, close enough that he could hear the rasp in her throat. "Take it off, then do it," she said. The words landed wrong, sharp and sudden, hanging in the air like a bad smell. Eli did not flinch, and he did not smile, out here. Men stripped cloth to stop bleeding, to cool skin, to save lives. Anyone who thought otherwise had never watched someone die under an open sky. He spoke low, steady, the way you talk to a skittish horse. "I'm going to help you," he said, each word slow and plain. "You stay still. You hear me," he added, already untying the clean cloth from his saddle before he touched her again. He scanned the land, habit drilled into bone. Flat grass, broken stone. No cover for 100 yards, no birds lifting, no sudden silence. But that meant little in summer. Eli lifted the torn fabric just enough to check her side, careful not to expose her to more heat than necessary. That was when he stopped breathing. There was a mark on her skin, dark and angry against the red burn of sun. Not a wound from falling. Not a scrape from rock or thorn. It was a symbol, pressed and smeared, the kind used by men who hid behind desks and stamps, not guns. Eli had seen it once before, years ago, when paper had stolen his land faster than any outlaw ever could. The wind shifted again. This time it carried dust. Not natural, not drifting, but lifted by movement. Horses, more than one. Eli did not waste time arguing with himself. He wrapped her side, firm but gentle, then slid an arm beneath her shoulders and another under her knees. She was lighter than she should have been, which told him how long she had been out here. When he set her across the saddle, she did not cry out, just exhaled, like she was letting go of something heavy. For a second, Eli considered leaving the mark covered and riding on without another look back. That was the smart choice, the one men like him survived by, but smart had not saved him before, and it would not save him now. As he mounted, the horse shifted, leather creaking, iron ringing soft. The flies returned, buzzing, angry at the loss of easy flesh. Eli kicked free and turned north, not toward town, not yet. Let me say this clearly. And then we ride on. This is not a clean story, and it is not a simple one. What you are hearing has been carefully researched and retold, with certain details shaped to bring out clearer lessons and deeper understanding of the choices people make under pressure. The images you see are created by AI, meant only to help you feel the heat, the fear, and the weight of this moment. If this kind of story is not for you tonight, it is all right to step away, rest, and take care of yourself. But if you stay, and something in it rings true, leave a comment so I know, because there are more stories like this, and they deserve to be told to those who listen. The girl stirred as the horse picked up speed. "They will not stop," she whispered, words dragged out of a dry throat. Eli did not ask who she meant, because he already knew. Mercy was a dangerous habit in the Arizona territory, especially in summer. Men who lived past 50 learned when to turn their backs and when to keep riding. Eli Mercer had turned his back before, and the cost had been high enough to teach him something else. He cut east, then south, avoiding the obvious tracks, moving where stone broke prints and wind erased the rest. Every choice was measured. Every mile counted. The dust behind them grew thicker, closer. Eli glanced down at the girl once more. Her eyes were closed now, but her grip had not loosened. The mark on her side burned in his mind, dragging the past into the present whether he wanted it or not. Ahead, the land dipped, offering a brief line of cover. Behind them, the dust rose higher. Eli leaned forward in the saddle, jaw set, already committed. He did not know her name yet. He did not know what she carried or how many men would die trying to take it. He only knew that if he kept riding, the past would catch him either way. The horse broke into a hard run. The wind howled, and somewhere behind them, someone else had seen the mark and decided it was worth killing for. The horse ran hard for a while. Then Eli eased him down, because a blown horse helped nobody. Heat pressed from above, heat climbed from the ground, and the wind kept scraping at them like it had a score to settle. The girl shifted once, a small sound in her throat, then went still again. Eli picked a shallow wash where stone broke tracks and the ground dipped just enough to hide them from a distance. He slid down, kept one hand on the reins, and listened. No gunshots, no shouting, just wind and insects, and the far-off rhythm of hooves that did not belong to him. He checked her breathing again, counted it, slow and steady. Then he checked the wrap on her side, tightened it a notch, and shaded her face with his hat for a moment. That was when he saw the mark again, clearer now, in the slanted light. It was not pretty, and it was not random. It had edges, intention, the look of something pressed by habit rather than anger. Men who carried marks like that did not do it for sport. They did it to claim leverage. Eli felt an old pressure behind his eyes, the kind that came when the past decided to speak up without being invited. He had learned the language of paper once, the seals, the neat lines, the way a small stamp could move a fence a mile overnight. That knowledge had cost him a ranch, a marriage, and a long stretch of believing he was done trusting anything that could be written down. The girl stirred again, her eyes opened just long enough to find his face. "You cut west," she said, voice thin, more memory than sound. "They will guess east." Eli nodded, not because he agreed, but because she was right. People chased what made sense to them. He had survived by doing the opposite. They moved again, slower this time, weaving through low ground, stopping when the wind shifted, moving when it covered their noise. Eli did not talk much. He never had. Words wasted breath, and breath was a resource out here. When the sun dipped, the land changed color, from harsh white to copper and red. Eli found a stand of scrub just thick enough to break sight lines and made camp without a fire. No smoke, no mistakes. He gave her a careful drink, then another. Not much, enough to keep her alive. She managed a crooked half smile, the kind people give when they know they are not out of danger but are grateful anyway. "You did right," she said, then closed her eyes again. Eli did not answer. Praise had a way of tempting fate. As night came on, the desert did what it always did. It cooled just enough to remind you it could kill you two different ways. Coyotes called far off, then closer, then farther again. Eli kept watch, rifle across his knees, back against a rock that had been there longer than any problem he carried. Sometime after dark, he heard it again. Hooves, slow, careful. The sound of men who knew they were close. Eli moved the horse by hand, eased the girl farther into shadow, then took a longer look at the mark on her side. In the faint light, he could see the shape clearly now, a familiar curve, a break in the line, a mistake he had once paid for because he trusted the wrong man. The name came back to him without effort. Jonah Pike. A man who smiled easy and counted slow, who knew where the books were kept, and who had access when others did not, if Pike was involved again. Then this was not a chase by hired guns alone. This was business. The girl woke just enough to notice Eli staring. "You recognize it," she said. It was not a question. Eli met her eyes. "Yeah," he said. "Wish I did not." She took a breath, steadied herself, then spoke like someone who had practiced telling the truth under pressure. "They used me to move things," she said. "Not the paper you think. The notes behind the paper." Eli understood. Survey notes, field lines, The quiet details that decided where a fence really belonged, not where someone said it did. "They want it back," she added, "or they want me quiet." Eli looked out at the dark, measured the distance to town, to water, to trouble. Holbrook sat ahead like a promise and a threat all at once. If they went straight in, someone would be waiting. If they stayed out, the chase would tighten. He made his choice the same way he always did, by cutting away the worst option first. They would not go into town tonight. They would circle, rest when they could, and arrive when people least expected them. By dawn, the girl was feverish but alive. That mattered. Eli tightened the saddle, checked the sky, and set them moving again. The dust showed by mid-morning. Closer now, not many. Good riders. Eli did not speed up. Speed made panic, and panic made errors. He angled toward a stretch of broken ground, the kind horses hated and men underestimated. The girl watched him work. Small movements, no wasted effort. "You do this a lot," she said, not accusing, just observing. "Enough," Eli replied. They reached the rocks as the sun climbed, and Eli slipped them through like water through a sieve. The pursuers followed, slower, careful not to break legs or pride. By the time the ground leveled again, the dust had thinned. Eli allowed himself one breath he did not need. Ahead lay the long road toward Holbrook, and beyond it, answers he did not want but could not avoid. Behind them, men with time and money were learning patience. Before we keep going, let me ask you something small. If you are enjoying this story so far, consider subscribing, because it helps these old stories keep finding the right ears. Pour yourself a cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you are listening from. We have a long road ahead, and the next stretch only gets harder. By late afternoon, the land softened just enough to lie to you. Grass looked thicker. Shade looked closer than it was. Eli knew better. This was the hour when men made mistakes because they thought the worst was already behind them. He kept them moving in long curves, never straight, always choosing ground that asked a little more from anyone following. The girl slept in short pieces, waking only when the horse shifted or when pain pulled her back. Each time she opened her eyes, Eli was still there. That mattered more than she said. They crossed a dry cut where the stone held yesterday's heat like a grudge. Eli slowed, checked the wrap again, and changed it without comment. His hands were steady. That steadiness did not come from confidence, and it came from repetition. Men did not get good at this by luck. They got good because they had once been bad and paid for it. As the sun slid west, Eli finally angled toward water he trusted. Not a creek that dried on a promise, but a shallow bend along the little Colorado that held even in lean years. He let the horse drink first because a good horse was the difference between getting old and getting buried. The girl stirred and watched him work. Not just the motions, but the order of them. "You do not rush," she said, voice still rough but stronger than before. "No need," Eli replied. "Rushing just makes noise." She smiled at that, a real one this time, then winced and turned her face away. Pain had a way of reminding people to stay honest. They rested just long enough to matter. Eli ate a strip of dried meat, chewed slow, and kept one eye on the far ridges. He counted the minutes, not by habit, but by instinct. The dust would come again. It always did. When it did, it came lower this time, closer, controlled. Eli felt it before he saw it, a change in the way the air moved, a tension that settled in his chest. He packed up without hurrying, lifted the girl back into place, and turned them south. Holbrook was not far now. That fact sat heavy on him. Town meant people. People meant stories. Stories meant trouble that did not fade with the wind. As they rode, the girl spoke again, choosing her words like someone stepping across thin ice. "They will not come loud," she said. "They will come polite." Eli nodded. That matched what he remembered. Men with papers did not kick doors. They knocked, smiled, and let the law do the dirty work. He asked her one question and only one. "Who else knows what you carry?" She took a moment, then answered straight. Too many, she said, and not the right ones. That told him enough. They reached the outer ground near Holbrook as the sky began to cool. Eli did not head straight in. He never did. He circled wide, past the familiar fences, the ones that had shifted over the years without explanation. That was when memory came hard. He remembered the day a line moved on paper and his cattle were suddenly trespassers. He remembered the smiles, the apologies, the advice to be reasonable. He remembered Jonah Pike standing just to the side, hat in hand, eyes never quite meeting his. The girl noticed the change in Eli, the way his jaw tightened, the way his shoulders squared. You know this town, she said. I know what it pretends to be, Eli answered. They stopped short of the lights, far enough that the noise of town sounded like something happening to someone else. Eli dismounted and checked her side again. The fever had eased. Not gone, but eased enough to buy time. You go in alone, she said suddenly. Eli looked at her then. Really looked. Not happening, he replied. If they see me, she continued. They will take me. If they take me, they get what they want. Eli thought about that. He thought about the mark. He thought about Jonah Pike. He thought about how men like Crow did not forgive detours. He made a compromise. They would not go in through the front. They would use the edge, the places town forgot when it grew. As darkness settled, Eli moved them closer, keeping to shadow, letting the noise cover them. Somewhere nearby, a piano played badly. Laughter spilled out of a saloon, sharp and careless. The girl watched it all like someone looking at a world she might never step into again. You could still leave, she said quietly. No one would blame you. Eli tied the horse and checked the rifle one more time. Plenty would blame me, he said. I would be one of them. They were almost in now, almost committed. From the far end of the street, a man stepped into the light, slow and deliberate. He did not look like trouble. That was the problem. Eli recognized the way he stood, the way he waited. Jonah Pike had always been good at timing. Jonah Pike did not rush. He never had. He stepped into the light like he owned the space between shadows. Hat clean, boots brushed, hands open where everyone could see them. That was how he always did it. Look harmless long enough, and people forgot to watch their backs. Eli stayed where he was, half hidden, weight settled, breathing slow. He did not move for his gun. Men like Jonah noticed that kind of thing, and noticed it fast. The town kept making its noises around them. Laughter spilled out of the saloon. A door slammed. Someone argued over cards. Life went on like nothing important was about to happen. Jonah spoke first, voice calm, friendly, the kind meant to carry. Evening, Eli, he said, like they had parted on good terms. Eli answered without stepping forward. Evening, Jonah smiled, small and careful. You look tired, he said. Long ride? Eli almost laughed at that. Almost. Behind him, the girl shifted. Eli felt it more than heard it. He adjusted his stance just enough to block her from view. Jonah noticed that too. Passing through, Jonah went on. Town has a way of pulling people in, though. It has a way of chewing them up, too, Eli replied. That smile slipped for half a second. Then it came back, practiced and smooth. Jonah took a step closer, boots quiet on the dirt. You should bring your business inside, he said. Sheriff is around tonight. Good time to clear misunderstandings. Eli knew that line. He had heard it years ago, spoken by men who pretended they were helping. Clearing misunderstandings usually meant signing something you should not, or agreeing to leave quietly. We are not here for town business, Eli said. Jonah tilted his head. Funny, he replied, because town business seems to be looking for you. That was the moment Eli understood this was not just a chance meeting. Jonah had been waiting, not for him exactly, but for whoever came in carrying trouble. Eli shifted his weight again, slow, deliberate. Move along, Jonah, he said. Jonah sighed, like a man disappointed by stubborn livestock. I cannot do that, he answered. Not tonight. From the corner of Eli's eye, he saw movement, two men leaning away from the wall across the street. Another shape farther down, pretending to tie a horse. None of them looked dangerous. All of them were... The girl whispered from behind him. Barely sound at all. Eli. He did not turn. He did not answer. He already knew what she was going to say. Jonah took another step. Close enough now that Eli could see the faint scar near his jaw. The one he had gotten the same year Eli lost his land. Funny how life liked symmetry. You always did have a temper, Jonah said. Never learned when to let things go. Eli felt the old heat rise, the kind that burned smarter men than him. He let it pass. Anger was loud. He needed quiet. Last chance, Eli said. Jonah smiled again, wider this time. That sounds like a threat. It is advice, Eli replied. For a long second, nobody moved. Then Jonah raised his hands, palms out like a man backing away from trouble. All right, he said. No need for that. He took one step back, then another. That was when the girl coughed. Just once. Just enough. Jonah's eyes flicked past Eli's shoulder. He saw her. Just a glimpse. Just enough. Everything changed. Jonah's smile vanished, not replaced by anger, but by calculation. He knew what he was looking at, even if he did not know why yet. So that is how it is, he said quietly. Eli moved then, fast. He grabbed the girl, pulled her deeper into shadow, and shoved Jonah back with his shoulder. Not hard enough to start a fight. Hard enough to make a point. The men across the street shifted. Hands moved closer to belts. Eli did not wait. He backed them both away, step by step, eyes never leaving Jonah's face. Jonah did not follow. He did not need to. Take her to the old place, Jonah called after them. That is where you always go when you are scared. Eli didn't answer, but the words landed hard. They moved fast now, cutting down a narrow path behind the buildings, the kind meant for trash and forgotten things. The town noises faded, replaced by their own breathing and the soft scuff of boots. The girl leaned heavy against him. You know him, she said. I wish I did not. Eli replied. They reached the edge of town and did not slow until the lights were behind them. Eli did not stop until they were clear of sight and sound. Only then did he let himself breathe. Jonah Pike had seen her. That meant Crow would know soon. That meant this had moved from quiet pressure to open pursuit. Eli looked back once and toward the glow of Holbrook. He had hoped to slip in and out, leave no mark, make no waves. That hope was gone now. He turned the horse toward his ranch, the place he had sworn never to drag trouble back to again. Some promises only lasted until the wrong person broke them first. As they rode, the girl lifted her head, eyes clearer than before. If we go there, she said. They will follow, Eli nodded. I know. He did not add the rest, that sometimes the only way through was straight into the fire. They rode out of Holbrook, with the town lights behind them and the desert ahead, a black ocean that did not care who was guilty. Eli kept them off the main track, not because he was afraid of a fair fight, but because a fair fight was rarely what found you in the territory. Behind them, the sound of the town faded, but the feeling of being watched did not. By the time the ranch came into view, the moon was high and the wind had cooled just enough to make a man think he could breathe again. Eli did not let that fool him. Cool air only made it easier to hear trouble coming. His place was small, built for work, not for company, a low house, a barn that leaned a little, a corral fence patched more times than he liked to admit. Most men would have been embarrassed by it. Eli was not. He had built it back from almost nothing, and that meant more than fresh paint. He got the horse inside first, then led the girl down slow. She stood on her own for 2 breaths, then swayed. Eli caught her elbow, steady as a post. He brought her into the house and laid her on the narrow bed by the wall. No fuss, no grand talk, just the kind of care a man gives when he is already lost enough to know what matters. He checked the wrap again, cleaned what needed cleaning, and gave her a sip of water that tasted like iron and patience. Then he closed the shutters and dimmed the lamp, because light was an invitation. Outside, the ranch sounded normal, a horse shifting, a board creaking as it cooled, Far off, a coyote testing the night, but Eli knew the difference between normal and safe, and this was not safe. The girl slept, and Eli finally let himself look through her things, not like a thief, but like a man trying to keep both of them alive. He found the locket at her neck, simple brass, scuffed like it had been grabbed at more than once. He did not open it right away. He stared at it, weighing the choice, because once you opened a thing like that, you could not pretend you did not know what was inside. He opened it anyway. Inside was a tiny photograph, edges worn soft, a man in a stiff coat, a woman beside him, both looking serious, like the camera had asked them to hold their breath forever. Tucked behind it was a folded piece of paper, thinner than it had any right to be, folded so tight it looked like it had been worried by nervous finger. Eli unfolded it carefully. There were no love words, no poetry, just names and marks, the kind that meant nothing to most folks and everything to the wrong ones. A list of water points and a few ranch names, and a note about survey lines that did not match the public record. At the bottom, one phrase that tightened Eli's throat. Field notes. Eli sat back in his chair and let the old anger rise again. Quieter now, more dangerous. He remembered men in clean shirts talking about boundaries like they were weather. He remembered fences moved in the night. He remembered being told he was unreasonable for noticing. He looked at the girl, really looked this time. 23, worn down by fear, but still holding on to something that could break a powerful man. She was not just running from gunmen. She was running from the kind of men who could smile while they ruined you. The girl woke with a small gasp, eyes searching the room like she expected to see hands on her. Eli spoke before panic could take her. "You are safe for the moment," he said. She blinked, then focused on him. Her voice came out low, careful. "Did you open it?" Eli nodded once. "Yeah." She closed her eyes, as if that admission cost her. Then she opened them again, stubborn as a nail. "They will come," she said. "Not to talk." Eli leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Tell me what you can," he said. "Only what matters." She took a breath, steadied herself, then gave him the shape of it. Not a speech, not a confession. Just facts, like she had learned to live on facts. Silas Crow was buying up water rights, or stealing them, when buying did not work. Sheriffs and clerks and survey men did not always start crooked. But Crow had a way of making the straight ones tired, and Jonah Pike was his quiet hand and the one who knew which book to change and which page to tear. Eli listened, face still, but something hard forming behind his eyes. He did not interrupt. Men over 45 did not need a lot of explaining to understand how a town could be owned without a single shot fired. When she finished, there was a silence that felt heavier than talk. Eli stood, walked to a drawer, and pulled out a worn envelope. Inside was a paper with an old seal, faded but legible. His claim, his boundary, his proof. Back when proof still mattered to him. He had not looked at it in years because it reminded him of the day he learned paper could lie. Now he set it on the table beside her list, like two pieces of the same wound finally touching. "You know what this is," the girl said softly. Eli nodded. "Yeah," she swallowed. "And you know why that mark on my side scared you?" Eli did not answer right away. He did not like giving the past fresh air, but he owed her the truth. If he was going to keep dragging her through the dark, "It is the same kind of mark," he said, voice quiet. "Same circle, same break in the line. It shows up around land deals that do not smell right." The girl looked away, then back. "They pressed it on me so I would remember who owns the room," she said. "Not my body. The room." Eli exhaled through his nose, a sound that almost became a laugh and then chose not to. Men like Crow always did like their little reminders. Eli walked to the window, lifted the edge of the shutter just enough to see the yard. Moonlight on dust. No movement. Too quiet. That was when he heard it, a soft metallic clink outside, faint, like a bit hitting a tooth. Then another sound, low and wrong, a horse being calmed by a hand that knew how. Eli eased the shutter closed without a snap, and his hand went to the rifle by habit. He did not look back at the girl yet. He did not want to put fear into her eyes unless he had to, but his voice came out steady anyway. "Stay down," he said. "Do not move until I tell you." He stepped toward the door, every muscle awake, every thought sharp. Because whatever was out there had found them faster than it should have. And in that moment, Eli realized something that made his stomach drop. Jonah Pike had not followed them. He had sent someone who knew the ranch as well as Eli did. Eli waited 3 breaths before he moved, because men who rushed in the dark usually did not get a second chance. The sound outside was faint now, but it had weight to it, like someone trying too hard to be quiet. That told him more than noise ever could. He shifted his foot, slow enough not to creak the board, and reached the rifle without looking. The wood felt familiar, worn smooth by years of work, not panic. That steadiness was not bravery. It was habit. Outside, a horse snorted softly, then settled. Someone was close enough to calm it with a touch. That meant confidence, not desperation. Eli eased the door open just enough to see the yard. Moonlight laid everything flat and honest. The corral fence, the water trough, the barn shadow stretched long and dark. Movement flickered near the barn, then stopped. Not running, not hiding, waiting. Eli stepped out, closing the door behind him without a sound. He did not shoulder the rifle yet. Men like this watched for that. The night held its breath. Then the first man came at him fast, low, trying to close distance before Eli could bring the gun up. Eli shifted his weight and brought the rifle across, not to shoot, but to block. Wood met shoulder, air left lungs. They went down hard in the dirt. Rolling once, twice, no fancy moves, just leverage and knowing where a man was weak when he pushed too hard. Another shape moved in from the left. Eli rolled free, came up on one knee, and swung again, catching the second man across the jaw with the butt of the rifle. Teeth clicked. The man dropped. Eli did not follow him. He backed toward the house instead, keeping space, keeping light behind him. A third man stepped out then, taller, slower, not rushing at all. This one carried himself like he had done this before and walked away. That worried Eli more than the others. The man raised his hands halfway. Not surrender, just courtesy. "You are still quick," he said. Eli recognized the voice. Tuck Mallory, a name that had drifted through the territory for years, never staying in one place long enough to be pinned down. "You picked the wrong night," Eli replied. Tuck smiled a little, like he enjoyed being corrected. "That is what they all say," he answered. Behind Tuck, the first man groaned, trying to get up. Eli shifted just enough that all 3 stayed in front of him. Tuck took another step. "Careful. We are not here for you," he said. "Not really." Eli did not answer. He did not need to. Men who talked like that always were. The night exploded with movement then. One of the men rushed again. Desperation this time. Eli fired once, low, not to kill, but to end the idea. The shot cracked sharp and loud, tearing the quiet open. The man went down screaming, clutching his leg. The sound carried. That was bad, but so was dying. Tuck stepped back, hands up now for real. "Easy," he said. "No need to make this messy." Eli breathed, slow, steady, sight fixed. "Leave," he said. Tuck nodded, eyes flicking past Eli toward the house. "That girl is expensive," he said. "Men like Crow do not forget investments." Eli did not blink. "Tell him I am not for sale," he replied. Tuck laughed quietly, like he appreciated the line. Then he backed away, dragging the wounded man with him, the third following close. They melted into the dark, fast and practiced. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. Eli stood there for a moment longer, listening, counting heartbeat. When he was sure they were gone, he moved. Inside, the girl was sitting up, pale but awake. Fear sharp in her eyes. She had heard the shot. Anyone would have. "It is done," Eli said. "For now." She nodded, swallowing. "That was Tuck," she said. Eli checked the window again. "Yeah," he replied. "I figured." She shifted. wincing. "They will not stop now," she said. Eli poured a little water, handed it to her. "Then neither will we," he answered. He cleaned up fast, packed what mattered, left what did not. Ranches could be rebuilt. People could not. As the first gray hint of morning crept in, Eli saddled the horse again. He looked once more at the house, the quiet place he had sworn to protect by staying out of trouble. That vow was gone now. The girl watched him work, eyes clearer than they had been since he found her. "You fought them off," she said. Eli tightened the cinch. "That was the easy part," he replied, because now Crow knew exactly where they were. And next time he would not send men to test the fence. He would send the law. They did not ride at sunrise. Eli waited until the light was fully up, until the world looked ordinary again. Men chasing trouble expected panic. Eli preferred disappointment. They moved north toward Winslow, not straight, not fast, letting the land do some of the work. The girl rode better now, sitting steadier, eyes clearer, pain pushed back just enough by will and necessity. That change did not go unnoticed. By midday, they stopped near a stand of cottonwoods where the air smelled faintly of water and rust. Eli let the horse drink, then tied him where shade still mattered. He sat on a rock and ate without ceremony. The girl watched him for a long moment before she spoke. "You know what they will do next," she said. Eli nodded. "They will say I shot first," he replied. "They will say you are not who you say you are." She did not deny it. That was telling. They rested only long enough to matter, then moved on. Winslow appeared the way towns always did, slow and uninvited, rising out of dust and promise. Tracks, telegraph lines, people who believed paper still meant protection. Eli did not take her into the center. He never trusted places where too many eyes shared one story. Instead, he brought her to the edge, to a small clinic run by a man who asked fewer questions than most. The doctor cleaned the wound properly this time. No rush and no judgment. Just skill and silence. Eli waited outside, back to the wall, listening to the town breathe, when the doctor finally nodded and stepped away. Eli knew she would live, and that mattered more than relief. Later, as the heat eased and the shadows grew long, the girl asked Eli to sit, not like a request, like something owed. "You saved me," she said, "but you need to know something." Eli sat. He did not interrupt. "I did not fall into this by accident," she continued. "I knew what I was carrying, and I knew who would come looking." Eli studied her face. Not fear there. Resolve. "I worked with records," she said. "Not the ones people see, the notes behind them." That landed clean. Survey notes again, the quiet truth under the loud lie. She told him then, not everything, but enough. How she had been hired young because she was careful. How she had learned which lines mattered and which ones were drawn to be moved later. How Crow did not like loose ends. "They used me because I could move without noise," she said. "Until I stopped doing what they wanted." Eli leaned back, letting that settle. "So you ran," he said. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "I left." There was a difference, and they both knew it. She reached into her coat and pulled out a second folded paper, smaller than the first. This one was creased hard, like it had been hidden close to skin. She handed it to Eli without ceremony. He opened it and felt the weight immediately. Coordinates, dates, names written careful enough to last. "This is where the original field notes were copied," she said, "and this is who helped hide them." Eli read one name twice, then a third time. Jonah Pike. So that was how deep it went. Not just stolen land, but stolen truth. "You knew about me," Eli said, not accusing, just stating. She nodded once. "I knew what happened to you," she said. "That is why I came this way." That hit harder than the fight had. He had been chosen, not found. Eli stood and walked a few steps and letting anger rise and fall without taking hold. Men his age learned how to let things pass through instead of settle. "You could have told me sooner," he said. "I needed you to choose," she replied. "Not because of me, Because of you. Eli understood that too, even if he did not like it. By evening, rumors were already moving. Eli could feel it in the way people looked, in the pauses that lasted half a second too long. Someone had sent word ahead. That night, the town paper ran a short piece, nothing dramatic, just enough. A rancher involved in a shooting, a young woman of unclear origin. Authorities advised caution. Eli folded the paper and set it down. Crow was not hiding anymore. They will come with badges now, the girl said. Eli nodded. And badges make people brave. They could not stay. Staying would mean explaining, and explaining was how men like Crow won. Eli packed again, this time lighter, smarter. He left nothing he could not afford to lose. As they rode out under cover of night, the girl asked one more thing. If this ends badly, she said, will you regret helping me? Eli did not answer right away. He watched the lights of Winslow fade behind them. I regretted not helping once, he said. I'm not doing that again. Ahead lay Flagstaff, cooler air, tighter lines, and a place where messages moved faster than men. Behind them, Crow was adjusting his plans, and somewhere between the two, the law was about to decide who it belonged to. They reached Flagstaff under a sky that felt different, cooler, thinner, like the land itself was watching closer. Pine trees replaced open scrub, and the road tightened, forcing travelers into fewer choices. Eli did not like fewer choices. Flagstaff was louder than Winslow, busier too. Rail workers, lumbermen. Storefronts that stayed open late because money moved faster here. It was the kind of place where news arrived before you did. Eli felt it the moment they rode in. Looks held a little too long. Conversations paused half a breath when he passed. Someone had been talking. He kept them moving, straight through the edge streets, past places where men gathered to feel important. They stopped near a telegraph office that sat back from the main road, close enough to be useful, far enough to be forgotten. This was Clara's ground now. Eli could feel it in the way she sat straighter, the way her eyes tracked doors and windows. Pain still slowed her, but purpose carried the rest. They did not go inside together. Eli stayed with the horse, back turned, hat low, looking like any other rancher waiting on business. Clara stepped in alone. Time stretched, too long. Eli listened to the town, boots on boards, a laugh that went on too long, somewhere close, a bottle breaking. When Clara finally came back out, her face told him enough. Not panic, something worse, disappointment mixed with urgency. They were already there, she said quietly. Eli nodded once. Listening, he replied. She confirmed it with a small movement of her head. Someone knew which message to wait for. That meant Crow was not just chasing, he was anticipating. They moved again, this time toward a boarding house Clara trusted. A woman who asked no questions if paid on time. The room was small, clean enough, and overlooked the rail line. Too visible, but sometimes hiding meant standing in the open and daring someone to blink. Eli took the chair by the window. Claire sat on the bed, unwrapped the papers, and spread them out carefully. Not all of them, just enough. These alone are not enough, she said. They prove intent, not action. Eli watched the train roll past, iron screaming against iron. What do we need? He asked. She tapped one corner of the paper. The original copy, she said. The one Jonah helped bury. Eli turned from the window. Prescott, he said. She nodded. That settled it, but Flagstaff was not done with them yet. By nightfall, a notice was posted near the rail office, short, carefully worded, a reward for information regarding a violent incident near Holbrook. A rancher, a woman traveling under questionable circumstances. No names, no accusations, just enough truth twisted to make strangers feel helpful. Eli tore it down once. Another went up by morning. That was Crow's style. Relentless, polite pressure. The first man followed them that afternoon. Not close, not obvious. A shopkeeper who stepped out too often. A rail worker who leaned too long. Eli did not confront him. Confrontation made witnesses. The second man was better. He passed them twice from opposite directions. That one Eli marked. The third was a surprise. A deputy, not from Flagstaff, passing through with his badge clean and his questions casual. Eli answered little. Claire answered less. By evening, it was clear they were not being hunted with guns. They were being boxed in with rules. "You cannot outrun this," Clara said, voice low. "I am not trying to," Eli replied. That night, Eli left the room alone. No gun, no hurry. He walked 3 blocks, turned twice, then slipped into a narrow space between buildings. The man following him was good, not perfect. Eli waited until the last second, then stepped aside and grabbed the man's sleeve, twisting just enough to spin him into the wall. No punch, no shouting. Just pressure and surprise. "Walk away," Eli said. The man froze, not afraid, confused. "You are not paid enough," Eli added. The man nodded once and left without a word. When Eli returned, Claire was already packing. "They will use the sheriff next," she said. Eli did not argue. He had seen this before. Once the law arrived, truth slowed down and lies got official. They left Flagstaff before dawn, taking a road that climbed, then dropped, then twisted back on itself. Cool air burned the lungs. Pines gave way to rock. Behind them, Crow adjusted again. He always did. Ahead lay Prescott. Records, seals, men who still believed paper could end a story. Eli tightened the reins. Eyes forward. He had hoped Flagstaff would buy them time. Instead, it had taught him something worse. Crow was no longer reacting. He was planning, and that meant the next move would decide everything. The road toward Prescott climbed the way hard decisions always did. Slow at first, then steeper than expected. Cool air cut through sweat, and the land closed in, pine and stone replacing wide sky. Eli preferred this country. Fewer places to hide meant fewer surprises. They rode mostly in silence, not because there was nothing to say, but because everything important had already been said the hard way. Clara held on well enough now, pain tucked behind focus, eyes sharp and working. She was no longer being carried by the moment. She was choosing it. By mid-morning, they stopped near a narrow creek that ran clear and cold, fed by higher ground. Eli let the horse drink, then sat back on his heels and watched the water move. He always did that when a choice was coming. Clara dismounted carefully and stood beside him. "You are thinking about turning back," she said. Eli did not deny it. "Thinking about every option," he replied. She nodded, understanding the difference. "You could head east," she said. "New Mexico would not care about Arizona problems." Eli smiled faintly. "That is the trouble," he said. "It would not care." They both knew what that meant. Running would keep them alive. It would not fix anything. Eli looked north, then south, then back the way they had come. He pictured his ranch, the fence lines that never stayed where he put them, the neighbors who had learned to keep their heads down. Men his age did not usually start new fight. They finished old ones or walked away. "Prescott is not going to welcome us," Eli said. Clara leaned against a tree, careful of her side. "They will listen," she replied. "Not because they want to, because paper makes them." Eli watched a leaf spin in the current, caught, then freed. "Paper never made anyone honest," he said. "It makes them careful." She answered. That was close enough to true to matter. They moved again, following a trail that twisted through higher ground. The climb slowed them, but it also thinned the world. Fewer travelers, fewer eyes. Late in the afternoon, they met a man coming the other way, riding easy, hat low. He tipped it once, polite. Eli returned the gesture and kept moving. They had gone maybe 50 yards when Eli felt it. Not danger yet. Recognition. He slowed, glanced back once. Casual as could be, the man had stopped. Just for a moment. Eli did not turn around again. He did not need to. They rode another mile before Eli pulled off into a stand of trees and waited. The air smelled of sap and dust. The man came into view a minute later, moving cautious now. When he saw Eli waiting, he stopped. "Afternoon," the man said. "That it is," Eli replied. The man did not reach for anything. That told Eli he knew better. "You heading into Prescott?" the man asked. Eli nodded once. "Road is busy today," the man said. "Lot of interest in who comes and goes." Eli smiled, thin. "Funny," he said. "It looks empty." The man took a breath. "Not the kind of interest you see," he replied. Clara watched from the shade, saying nothing. "You should know," the man continued, "that a marshal has been asking questions about a rancher and a woman." Eli let that land. "That's so," the man nodded. "People like to be helpful." "People like rewards," Eli corrected. That got a smile. Not friendly, respectful. "You are not wrong," the man said. "Just thought you might want to know." Eli tipped his hat. "Appreciate it." The man lingered a second, then turned and rode on. He did not look back. Clara exhaled slowly. "That was a warning," she said. Eli nodded. "And a test." They camped that night high enough to see the lights of Prescott flicker in the distance. Faint and steady, the town sat like a promise it might not keep. Eli built no fire. He cleaned his rifle, slow and methodical, then set it aside. Clara went through the papers again, checking corners, dates, the small details that mattered most. "If this works," she said quietly, "it will not be clean." Eli looked up. "It never is." She hesitated, then asked the question she had been circling since Winslow. "Why are you really doing this?" Eli did not answer right away. He watched the lights, thought about years lost, and about fences moved without asking. "Because if I walk away again," he said finally, "I will not recognize myself anymore." That was enough. Before dawn, they moved. No rush, no delay. The closer they got, the more the land tightened. Roads narrowing, choices shrinking. Prescott did not rise gently. It announced itself with offices and flags and buildings meant to look permanent. Eli felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. This was not a place you outran. This was a place you faced, at the edge of town. They stopped. Eli looked at Clara. She looked back, steady. "Once we step in," she said, "we cannot step out the same." Eli nodded. "I know." He tied the horse and took one last look at the road behind them. Then he turned forward. Because inside Prescott, waiting behind desks and doors, were the papers that could end Crow's hold or bury them both, and the man holding the keys to those records had already decided which side he was on. Prescott did not feel like a frontier town. It felt finished, decided, like it already knew how things were supposed to end. Brick buildings, flags hanging still in the cool air, men walking with purpose, papers tucked under arms like they mattered more than pistols. Eli hated places like this, not because they were civilized, but because they pretended fairness lived indoors. They entered slow, no rush, no show. Clara kept her head down, hat brim low, steps measured. Eli walked half a pace ahead, not guarding, just present. Men noticed presence like that, even if they did not know why. The office they needed was not marked loudly. It never was. Just a door, a sign with faded letters, and a clerk inside who had learned how to look busy without doing much. They waited and waited. Time stretched the way it did when decisions were being made somewhere else. Clara watched the clock. Eli watched the people. Finally, they were called in. The man behind the desk did not stand. He did not smile either. He had the look of someone who believed rules protected him personally. Eli set the papers down without flourish. No speech, no accusation. The man looked at them once, then again. His fingers paused over the page. He recognized what he was seeing. That pause said everything. "You understand?" the man said slowly. "That these claims are contested?" Eli nodded. "That is why I am here." The man shifted in his chair. "There are procedures," he continued. "Then follow them." Eli replied. The man did not like that answer. Procedures were only useful when they could be bent. Clara spoke then, quiet, precise. "These are field notes," she said. "Original entries, cross-referenced." That earned a look. Not respect. Concern. The man stood finally and walked to the window. as if the light might help him decide. Eli knew the type. Men who waited for permission they pretended they did not need. "You should know," the man said without turning, "that Silas Crow has interests in this region." Eli let that sit. "So do I." The man turned back, irritation breaking through. "Mr. Mercer," he said, using the name now, "this office cannot act on accusations." Eli leaned forward just enough. "Then act on records," he said. Silence filled the room, thick and deliberate. Finally, the man sighed. "I will review these," he said. "That is all I can promise." Eli nodded. Promises were cheap. They left without shaking hands. Outside, the air felt heavier, not dangerous yet, but waiting. They did not go far before Clara slowed. "That did not work," she said. "It worked enough," Eli replied. She looked at him. "How?" "They did not throw us out," he said. "That means they are scared." Fear was leverage. They took a room nearby, one night only. Eli positioned himself where he could see the street. Clara laid the remaining papers out again, checking for damage, for gaps. By evening, the knock came, polite, measured. A marshal stood in the hallway, hat off, eyes careful, not hostile, worse, neutral. "Mr. Mercer," he said. "Ma'am." Eli waited. "I'm here to ask you a few questions," the marshal continued. "About what?" Eli asked. "An incident near Holbrook," the man replied. "And about your presence here." Eli nodded. "Ask." The questions were clean, too clean. Names, times, movements. Eli answered enough to be true, not enough to be helpful. Clara spoke once, correcting a date. The marshal watched them both, weighing. "You understand," he said, "that people are concerned." Eli met his eyes. "People are always concerned when their comfort is threatened." The marshal did not disagree. When he left, the hallway felt emptier than before. "He is deciding," Claire said. "So are we," Eli replied. Night settled over Prescott like a lid. Lights burned late in offices that claimed to close early. Messages moved quietly. Eli knew Crow would not wait. Men like him never did when paper was involved. Near midnight, Claire stiffened. "Someone is downstairs," she whispered. Eli listened. Boots. One set. Slow. He moved to the door, eased it open just enough to see the shadow stretch across the floor. The man stopped on the stairs, not trying to hide. "You have something that belongs to my employer," the man said calmly. Eli recognized the voice even before the face came into view. Tuck Mallory again. "Your employer has a habit of borrowing," Eli replied. Tuck smiled. "Borrowing ends when it stops being convenient," he said. Eli did not answer. He did not need to. Tuck took one more step, then stopped. "Tomorrow," he said, "things get official." Eli watched him go, heart steady, mind racing. Tomorrow meant hearing, seizures and badges. Crow was closing the door. Eli turned back to Clara. "They will not let this reach daylight," he said. She nodded. "Then we bring daylight to them." Eli looked at the remaining papers, at the names, at the gaps. One thing was missing. One piece Crow thought buried for good. Eli felt the old fire return, sharp and clear. Not anger, purpose, because somewhere in Prescott was the original record. The one Crow could not afford anyone to see, and Eli knew exactly who had kept it hidden. Eli did not sleep that night. Men who planned to pull truth out of a place built to hide it never did. Instead, he sat in the chair by the window and let the night pass through him, minute by minute, until the sky lightened enough to matter. Prescott woke early. Not loudly, efficiently. Doors opened, boots hit boards, paper started moving. Eli moved with it. They left the room before the town fully noticed them, taking a side street that curved toward the old records building. Not the one people knew, the one behind it, the annex nobody talked about because nothing exciting ever happened there. Clara walked slower now, but steadier. Pain had settled into something manageable. something she could work around. Eli stayed close, not touching, just present. The building smelled like dust and ink and time. Inside, a clerk looked up, surprised, then bored. That was good. Eli placed the name down carefully. Not a demand, not a plea, just a name and a date. The clerk frowned. That file was moved, he said. Eli nodded. I know. The clerk hesitated, then stood and disappeared through a side door. That hesitation told Eli more than the words. When the man returned, he was not alone. Jonah Pike stepped in behind him, hat off, face calm, eyes sharp. So that was Crow's mistake. He should have stayed invisible. Jonah smiled like an old friend. You always did hate waiting, he said. Eli looked at him once. I always hated liars more, he replied. The clerk excused himself without being asked. Men who survived long enough knew when they were not part of the story anymore. Jonah gestured toward a back room. Shall we? He said. Eli followed, Clara close behind. The room was small. One desk, one cabinet, one window too high to see out of. Jonah leaned against the desk, relaxed. You could have left, he said. All these years, and you still picked the hard road. Eli stepped closer. Show me the file. Jonah chuckled. You always were direct. He opened the cabinet and pulled out a thick folder, edges worn from being handled more than it should have been. He placed it on the desk, not opening it yet. You see, Jonah said. Some things are safer buried. Eli rested his hand on the folder. This one is not, Jonah sighed, like a man disappointed by stubborn weather. You think this ends Crow? He said. It does not. It ends his hold, Eli replied. Jonah straightened then, irritation breaking through. You never understood how the world works, he said. Eli met his eyes. I understand it just fine, he replied. I just refused to kneel to it. Outside, boots stopped. Then more boots. Jonah smiled again. You are late, he said. Not to Eli. The door opened. The marshal stepped in, badge visible, expression careful. Behind him stood two deputies, hands near belts. The room tightened. The marshal looked at the folder. Mr. Pike, he said. I'm going to need that. Jonah hesitated, then slid the folder across the desk. Of course, he said smoothly. Eli felt the shift immediately. Crow had chosen to sacrifice the quiet hand to save the loud one. The marshal opened the folder, flipped pages, then stopped. His face changed, not surprise, recognition. These were not rumors. These were originals. The marshal closed the folder slowly. This will require review, he said. Eli nodded. Public review, he replied. Jonah laughed once, sharp and bitter. You think this makes you a hero, he said. Eli did not answer. He did not need to. The deputies moved closer. Not toward Eli, toward Jonah. That was when the noise came from outside. Shouting, horses. Crow had arrived. Silas Crow did not burst in. He never did. He waited in the street, letting the town see him, letting everyone understand this was official business. Eli saw him through the high window. Hat perfect, coat clean. A man who had never had to fight fair. The marshal swallowed. This was bigger than he had planned for. Crow's voice carried up from below. Let us all be reasonable, he called. Eli felt the old anger rise, but he held it down. This was not about anger anymore. Jonah leaned close to Eli and whispered, almost kindly, You will lose everything again. Eli looked at him. Not this time, he said. The marshal straightened. Mr. Crow, he called back. You should come inside. Crow smiled when he entered. A smile practiced for rooms like this. He looked at the folder, then at Eli, then at Clara. So, he said, this is how you want to do it. Eli did not speak. Clara stepped forward instead, placing the remaining papers beside the folder. Dates, names, connections. Crow's smile thinned. You have no idea what you are starting, Crow said. Eli finally spoke. I know exactly what I am ending. The room held its breath. Crow looked from the marshal to the deputies weighing his options. For the first time, he did not have many Outside, people gathered. Word moved fast when power wobbled. Crow straightened his coat. "This is not over," he said. Eli met his eyes. "It never is," he replied. Crow left under watch, not arrested yet, but no longer in control. That mattered. Jonah was led out separately, his confidence gone, replaced by something small and tight. When it was over, the room felt empty. Clara leaned against the desk, exhausted. Eli caught her before she fell. "You did it," she said. Eli shook his head. "We started it," he replied, as they stepped outside into the daylight. Prescott buzzed with questions and fear and curiosity. The truth was out now. That was the dangerous part. Eli knew what came next would not be quiet. Crow would fight. The law would hesitate. And somewhere between those two forces, Eli would have to decide what he was willing to lose one last time. The days after Prescott did not feel like victory. They felt like work. Crow did not vanish. Men like him never do. He lost ground, lost silence, lost the comfort of knowing no one would say his name out loud. That mattered, but the territory did not change overnight, and neither did the people living in it. Eli and Clara left town before the talk turned sharp. They did not need applause, they needed distance. The road back toward Holbrook felt longer than the road in, not because of danger, but because of thought. Every mile gave Eli time to replay what he had done, what he had risked, and what it had cost. His ranch looked smaller when it came into view, not weaker, just honest. Some fences were down, a gate hung crooked. The place showed signs of being tested while he was gone. That was expected. Clara dismounted slowly and stood there, breathing it in, the dust, the quiet, the kind of quiet that did not ask questions. They worked without talking at first and fixing what needed fixing. Feeding the horse, drawing water. Life had a way of returning when you gave it room. That night, rain came. Not much, enough to darken the soil and make the air smell clean. Eli stood on the porch and let it hit his hat, his shoulders, his hands. He did not rush inside. Clara joined him, keeping a careful distance at first, then closer. Not touching yet, just sharing the same quiet. "You could have walked away," she said. Eli nodded. "I thought about it," he replied. She waited. "I think about it every time I see someone in trouble," he went on. "Walking away is easy. Living with it is not." She smiled at that, small and tired. The days turned into week. Words spread, slower than lies, but steadier. Crow lost allies, not all. Enough. The sheriff changed his tone. The marshal started returning letters. Things moved the way they should have years ago. Eli did not chase credit. He fixed the fences. He counted cattle. He watched Clara regain strength, not because he saved her, but because she refused to stay broken. She chose to stay. Not out of debt, out of alignment. They talked in the evenings, about work, about land, about the kind of life that did not need to shout to feel real. They did not promise each other the world. They promised effort. And for men my age, effort means more than poetry. Now let me step out of the dust for a moment and speak to you directly, because this part matters. I have told a lot of stories like this over the years. Men who stand at a crossroads, women who refuse to disappear quietly, land that remembers every choice made on it. But this one stays with me, because it reminds me of something I learned the hard way. Doing the right thing rarely feels clean. It usually feels inconvenient. It costs sleep. It costs comfort. Sometimes it costs friends who only liked you when you stayed quiet. Eli did not win because he was stronger. He won because he stopped lying to himself about who he was willing to be. And that is a lesson worth carrying into your own life. Ask yourself this. Where have you been walking away? Not because you were wrong, but because it was easier. Where have you accepted a smaller version of your life because pushing back felt exhausting? At some point, every man and woman reaches an age where comfort stops being enough, where you want to look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. Eli reached that point at 51. You do not have to wait that long. Another lesson here is about partnership. Clara did not need saving. She needed someone who would stand when standing mattered. And Eli did not need youth or admiration. That he needed purpose. When two people meet at that level, not fantasy, not rescue, but responsibility, something solid can grow. That applies beyond romance. It applies to friendships, to work, to how you show up for your family. Here's another hard truth. Paper still rules the world. Not land deeds, maybe, but contracts, policies, expectations, unspoken rules. If you do not learn how those things work, someone else will use them against you. Knowledge is not arrogance. It is armor. Eli learned that late, but he learned it well enough to pass it on. And there is this: fear never disappears. It just changes shape. The men who look fearless are usually the ones who decided what they were willing to lose. Eli accepted that he might lose his ranch again. What he refused to lose was himself. I want you to think about that tonight. What are you protecting, and what are you actually afraid of losing? Because those two things are not always the same. As the season turned, the ranch settled into a rhythm that felt earned. Clara took on work she understood, water rights, helping neighbors who never thought they had a voice. Eli watched it happen with quiet pride, not because he controlled it, because he trusted it. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the land gold, Claire asked him a simple question. Would you do it again? Eli thought about Prescott, about Jonah, about Crow, about the night he almost walked away in the desert. Yeah, he said, I would. Not because it was heroic, because it was necessary. That's how good lives are built. Not from moments of glory, but from decisions you would make again even if no one ever knew. If this story spoke to you, if it stirred something you've been carrying quietly, I ask you to do two small things. First, tap the like button. It helps this channel reach people who need these stories more than they know. Second, consider subscribing, not for me, but so these stories keep finding their way to the right ears. And I want to hear from you. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are right now? And what part of this story felt uncomfortably familiar? Because chances are, that is the part meant for you. Eli and Clara did not get a perfect ending. They got something better. A life that made sense when they lay down at night. And in the end, that is all any of us are really chasing.